Unit 1. Studying Abroad. Recording 1.
Hello, Lee Cha. I'm Susie Shaw, the admissions officer.
Hello. Pleased to meet you.
I'd just like to talk to you to find out a little more information to give your new teacher, Stephen Ennis.
Okay.
How old are you, Lee Cha?
I'm 18.
Okay. Now, your start date is next Monday. That's the 14th of February. And you're in Class 2B.
Sorry, 2D.
No, 2B. B for Bravo.
Oh.
Do you know when you're finishing? October or November?
I'd like to go home and see my family in November.
Finishing at the end of October then, the 29th. We need a contact number here and one in China, Lee Cha. Do you live with your parents?
No, I live with my grandmother and brother, Xiao, in Hong Kong. Their telephone number is 8731-4591. And my mobile number here is 0825 701 6924.
Obviously you've studied English before. How long have you been studying?
About 3 years.
Is that all? You must work hard. I thought you'd been studying for at least 5 years. Do you have any other hobbies?
Well, I like playing table tennis. I also spend a lot of time emailing friends. Oh, and I like reading. I read in English sometimes too.
Great. That's probably why your English is so good. Now, you want to take IELTS, don't you? Why's that?
Well, I want to go to the University of Sydney. I'd like to study IT and computing.
Really? Would you like to get a job in IT in the future?
Yes, I'd really like to work with computers. There are just so many possibilities.
Recording 2.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming this evening. I've been invited here tonight by the International Student Society to talk a bit about culture shock. For many of you who have recently arrived from your home countries, life here in New Zealand must seem quite strange and different to you in many ways. Because of my work as an anthropologist, I've had the opportunity to work in quite a number of different countries with quite diverse cultures, so I've had my fair share of culture shock and know exactly how you might be feeling at this time. Tonight, I want to talk a bit about my own experiences of culture shock and then go on to give you a few hints on how to minimise the effects. I first left New Zealand when I was only 22 to do some research work on the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. I was interested in learning all about the country and the people, but I was particularly fascinated by the architecture. In the part where I was working, the buildings have beautiful curved roofs that I'd never seen before, and I loved them. Life in Indonesia is very different from life in New Zealand, and at first I found it very difficult to adjust. The worst thing was looking different to everyone else. I'm about average height in New Zealand, but in Indonesia I was much taller than most people, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. One of the best things, though, was the food. A change in diet can be one of the biggest problems of moving to a new country. But for me, Indonesia was not difficult from that point of view. I'm very keen on spicy food, and there is an Indonesian chicken curry called rendang that is out of this world. Climate can be another thing that people find it difficult to adjust to. I found working in Egypt very difficult because of the extreme heat. In contrast, Living in Finland was hard because during the winter months the days are so short. Where I was in the north, it was only light for about 4 or 5 hours a day in December. By the end, I was pretty good at cross-country skiing, though. Language is often one of the biggest barriers when you're settling into a new country, but I'm quite good at learning them, and this hasn't usually been a problem for me. However, Japan was quite different. I had learnt some spoken Japanese before I went, but I hadn't tried to learn to write, so initially I was a bit nervous about going to a country where I couldn't read anything. This did make life a lot more difficult for me. I couldn't read the destinations on buses, or menus in restaurants, or even road signs. Sometimes it can be very small things that you're not used to that can make you feel the most homesick. For me, in China, it was connected with eating again. I really love Chinese food, but I found it very difficult to eat with chopsticks. I did learn eventually, but I still prefer a fork. One of the best things about my stay in China, though, was the professor I was working with at the university. He was really enthusiastic about his work, and that made my job very satisfying. Okay, well, enough about my experience. Having mentioned some of the problems I faced, I want to look a bit more generally at how you can adapt to culture shock.
Recording 3.
So, this afternoon we've been talking a bit about culture shock and your experiences of culture shock so far in adjusting to life in this country. Maybe this hasn't happened to you and you're thinking it won't because you're from Europe or you've done a lot of travelling before. But it is important to understand that culture shock can hit you whatever culture you come from and however well travelled you are. It's a perfectly normal experience, if a little worrying when it does happen to you. There are some things you can do, however, to help yourself get through it. First of all, do keep in touch with home. Aki, on student reception, can help you to buy a phone card to make cheaper calls home, and you can always email friends and family from the resource centre. If you haven't brought any photos of friends and family, get them to send you some so you can feel at home. Make sure you eat well, not just crisps and chocolate. And it's a good idea if you can eat some familiar food. Other students from your country will probably be able to help you find shops which specialise in food from your country. And you need to exercise too, not only for your health, and it's a good way of meeting people. Make some new friends, get to know the other international students, whether from your own country or others. They will understand something of what you're feeling, and their experience may be able to help you. And, if you can, try to make friends with the local home students. That way you can really learn about this new culture, and they can learn about yours. Let us help you. You're here at the orientation program, which is a good start, but we also offer a drop-in centre with a student advisor available daily and personal counselling. You might not use such a service at home, but remember that you perhaps don't have the same support networks of friends and family here, and these services can provide you with some support. The most important thing is to find someone who will listen uncritically and with understanding, rather than isolating yourself. You need to remember that culture shock is entirely normal and usually unavoidable. It's not a sign that you've made a mistake or can't manage. In fact, it can be a significant learning experience, making you more aware of aspects of culture as well as the new culture. It will give you valuable skills which will be part of the benefit of an international education.